Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Been called over to this house, and man, I can smell something funky going on here, but I can't quite place what it is. It smells like mold. It could be mold. You know what we do in these situations? Maybe you've had this happen. You phone up and you say, Bioclean, can you come and test for mold? And we say a very standard response. We don't personally test for mold. We know a person who does. So give me 1 second here. Let me get him on the phone. Aulden, are you there? Let's see if Aulden comes to the phone. Hello, Aulden.
How you doing, Jody?
Good. I'd like to introduce everyone to our good friend Aulden Reid of Border Property Inspections. You can check him out,
BorderHI.com.
borderhi.com. No GH on the end, borderhi.com. And Aulden is a local property inspector here in Lloydminster that also assists with some mold and air quality testing. We're going to go inside this house. We've been gracious enough to get access to it. Aulden's going to explain a little bit about the process that he does that helps us out in the work we do. So here's Aulden with Border Property Inspections. We can smell something going on. Aulden's going to explain his process and how he helps us, because we don't do the physical testing for mold or for other contaminants inside your house. Aulden, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
All right. Well, when I come to do a mold inspection, there's basically two things that I want to do. I want to check for air quality. I want to check for moisture, because if you don't have moisture, you don't have mold. And so I'm going to check around the outside of the house. I'm going to look everywhere inside the house, going to try to find evidence of problems inside the house. And sometimes it's obvious, like in this house. Other times it's not so obvious.
So you might have a concern about mold or some other contaminant. Hiring a contractor to come in and do the testing and the repair, the contractor has a financial interest. And so it could be possible that the contractor starts to find information in their initial assessment that leads to more work for that contractor working. Getting someone like Aulden in his professional services, he doesn't perform the actual work. He only does the testing and the consulting, and that's so important because he doesn't have a financial interest in your property. But Aulden is only there for a consultant. I think that's very important to recognize. Have a third party start to investigate the damages, provide you with their professional opinion. Then, if something is required within your home, then you consult with a contractor such as ourselves.
Yeah.
You want to take a look around this basement, tell us what you're finding?
Yeah, sure.
All
Let's
right.
have a look.
Let's go.
Okay, so I've arrived at the house here and I've moved some contents. And I get down and I look close at the wall, and you can see something on the wall here that looks like mold. So we don't actually know if it's mold. We have to test it in a lab first to determine if there's any mold in that black or green or whatever color. It doesn't have to be black. For my mold inspection, I would take pictures of this, I would record it all, and then I would try to figure out what caused this to happen. So, maybe something was stored against the wall and it created frost problems in the wintertime, or maybe it was a summertime problem with a leak. So I don't know that yet, but as I go through my mold inspection, I'm going to try to figure that all out, put it all into a report so the customer can understand it. And if the customer's sick, like I say, I might take some air samples. But if we see mold on the wall, I generally encourage my customers, don't bother with the air samples. We know that there's something on the wall growing here, and it's fairly extensive. If you look over here, so if this was a bedroom and somebody sleeps and they wake up in the morning and they're quite sick, well, that's probably causing the problem. And let's clean that up before we start taking air samples and spending more of the customers' money.
So you hired Aulden, he came over, he started to identify some of the mold, and more important, he started to identify why the mold was starting in the first place. So in this particular situation, there was a high humidity that was happening because of the client's lifestyle. They had furniture, as you can see, packed up tightly against the walls. So as this high humidity went from the warm air of the house and was attracted to the colder surfaces of the exterior, especially in the winter time, it started to create this mold. They didn't find as much in the summer. Why? Because the air had equalized, the walls were warmer outside.
Less condensation.
Exactly. And Aulden's report was able to identify all that before we arrived, because the client said, please share the information with Bioclean in this situation. So we're grateful for that. So Aulden's already gone through and done all the identification. That saves you time and that saves you money for a contractor to come in. I don't have to come in, or another contractor doesn't have to come in and redo the inspection for an additional cost. We simply go off the professional's information, professional home building inspector that did some air quality testing, some mold testing, identified exactly what was going on. Now we can get to work. So thank you, Aulden, for such an amazing report for this particular area. This was unobvious until some furniture was moved. Now we can take a look at some obvious mold and see the difference between that.
So as a home inspector, when I'm walking through a house and looking for problems, I've been through thousands and thousands of houses, and I know where the problems occur. In closets, for instance, that's a problem area. So when I open up the closet, guess what? There's something not right here. And again, now it's up to me as the home inspector at this point of the stage of the game to try to describe what I'm seeing and why this has happened. This wouldn't have grown here without moisture. So what caused the moisture? And that's where I would give an opinion and try to show the customer what I think has occurred here. Instead of just saying, oh, you just got to gut the basement. You know, what's the issue? What's the solution? And the solution, by the way, is not just cutting it out and replacing it. The solution is what's caused it in the first place. And that's why it's important to have a professional opinion, unbiased professional opinion to start with.
100%. I think that's an important thing just to touch on one more time. If you have a contractor just come in and start the removal, and then they do the repairs, because no one wants their basement or their closet or their family areas torn apart for any length of time, it'll look good on the surface. They come in, they do the removal, that looks better right off the bat. And then they put up some nice new drywall and some nice new paint and trim, and your family's moving back into place. And then a year or two later, like, oh, that smell seems to be reoccurring again. Yep. So getting someone like Aulden in to come and identify what the source of it is. Why did it start in the first place? How do we prevent it from happening? And then once that's known, take all the preventative action, and then you can use a contractor to assist you with it. And sometimes you can do it on your own as well.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just such an easy solution. It's like, look, your toilet is leaking.
Yeah.
And it's been leaking for months. So now you got to fix the toilet, you know, but then there's times when it becomes more of a problem. And, you know, one important thing that we should talk about is people try to fix things themselves. They shouldn't. So stay within your lane, stay within your knowledge and your safety factor. If you've got a family living in a home and you try to cut this all out and fix it yourself, you might end up sick, or a family member might. And you know what? People get sick from mold, and even after everything's cleaned up, they're sick for years. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a lifelong problem. But hiring professionals that have experience, that know how to, you know, you could tell them basically what you would do in this scenario. What would you do in this scenario?
Well, once Aulden's identified the problem, in these situations, we want to make sure cross-contamination doesn't happen. Before any removal starts, we want to contain this area. Our technicians will want to suit up and mask up for their health. Mold sitting like this can be dangerous enough. If you start removing it and disturbing it and spores start to get in airborne and so on. Now, it's not just a danger to you as a homeowner or building owner, our technicians as well for their health. And so you'll see us get suited up, masked up in appropriate PPE, protective personal equipment, contain the area to prevent cross-contamination. A lot of this is double bagged. That way it won't get cross-contaminated or break the bags while it's leaving this area once the removal is taking place. And then we want to make sure it's also properly disinfected once everything is done. So you'll see it taken all the way back to the studs. Perhaps the insulation is going to be removed as well if that's affected. And an antimicrobial, antibacterial spray is applied to the area. It's allowed to dry naturally over a couple days and then re-inspected before the actual rebuild takes place. So again, this is why having someone like Aulden come in to help identify the problem. We might be able to identify it as well. Contractors do have financial interest in your property. It can't be restated enough. Home building inspectors such as Aulden, they don't have a financial interest in your property other than providing you a report that's accurate and tries to identify what needs to be done.
Yeah. So the inspector needs to also get down and crawl into areas and look for hard spots. That's where the problem usually occurs because people don't check. So I would look at a situation like this and I would say, you know, I can see some wet spots over there. Of course, in an actual mold inspection, I'm going to crawl in there because that's where the problem is. Standing out here looking at this, it's not enough. Again, it comes back to professionalism, experience, and integrity. And it's not a matter of just, oh, let's just gut the place. We need to just do what's necessary. And that's one of the things I like about Bioclean, is they only do what's necessary. It's people's lives that we're dealing with. And this relationship has worked really well for us because I feel better at the end of the day knowing that I've done my part to help the customer understand their house better, what makes it healthy, what makes it sick, you know, that sort of thing. What are some lifestyle changes that are causing the problems that they're having possibly, and what are some lifestyle changes they can make to make their house healthier and safer to live in.
So thanks so much for joining us, and having Aulden come with us today was super exciting, but we don't want this to be the last time, do we, Aulden?
No, for sure. And I just want to say thank you to Bioclean for your confidence in border home inspections.
100%.
And we both have worked many, many years to try to establish professional, valuable customer service, and it helps keep people's homes safe and healthy to live in.
What should we talk about next time?
Well, why don't we, it's coming on to winter, it's quite chilly today, let's talk about winter tips.
I love that. Stay tuned for our next video. Get to see Alden's smiling face again. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks again, Aulden. Super appreciate it.